My dear friends, it's wonderful to be here. I am very pleased and joy to be celebrating this 16th Sunday in ordinary time with all of you. And I hope you're happy and joyful. I always say that, and we all need reminders in our lives because we forget. And when we forget the essentials of what it means to be a human being, to be a Christian, then perhaps we just live our lives in the world as if nothing matters. And therefore, I want to remind you that all of us baptized into Christ, we are called to live our lives as if we were missionaries. And that is a true fact, that all of us are called to be missionaries. Because the Second Vatican Council says that the church, by its very nature, is a missionary church. The church exists only and only for one thing, to be an extension of God's kingdom here on earth. You know this, right? We taught in the past that to be a missionary, you needed to be ordained or religious, profess, and then you are sent to a faraway country that speaks strange languages, that eats strange food, and then you get to be missionary, right? No longer the case. All of us baptized, you cannot escape by being missionary. And what does it mean? You don't need to go to a faraway country. You don't need to learn a new language. You can be a missionary right here, in this local church, in this neighborhood, in this city called Crown Point, right? Isn't that awesome? It's beautiful. Does it mean there are no challenges? There are. But you are more up to it, right? Because you're living here. What does it mean to be missionary? That you do not have to go to a different country. You only need to live and embody the values of the gospel of Christ. And what is the one fundamental value of the gospel? That Christ came to reveal and to proclaim and to offer his own life for us. What is it? Our salvation. But how did he save us? Love. How could you forget that? You know it, right? Love. Love. That's one thing. You got to live and love. That's all. That's all it means to be missionary. Love, love, love. That should be the watchword. You wake up, you love. You go to bed, you love. That's all. And I'll explain that to you. And it's right in the gospel. It's right in the first reading. Because everything that we do, if it's not based on love, is empty, is worthless. Christ gave us love. By his own life, he loved the world to the end. So you cannot be a Christian worth of the salt and not be loving. It doesn't mean that we get it all the day. Some days we don't. And that is okay. But that we cannot forget. We always have to go back. If one day you wake up and your heart doesn't feel like you need to love, whether your husband or your wife, and it's okay. But you have to go back. That's why Pope Francis said, not let a husband or a wife go to bed. Each night before you go to bed, let the husband tell the wife, perhaps I have not been the best husband today. Forgive me. I love you. The same with the wife. Before you go to bed, You tell your husband, perhaps I've not been the best wife today for you. I love you, but forgive me. And then you get to go to bed, feeling free. The same with your kids. That's it. Charity begins at home. And so you must begin right here in this local church, in this neighborhood, wherever, in these restaurants, in the marketplaces, wherever you find yourself, love. Isn't that awesome? And therefore, the first reading, it says that God, from the book of wisdom, that God, who is the most powerful being, who can do all things, he can destroy the world at a go. Yet, because of that power, God is the most merciful. He is the most loving. He is the most patient. Could you imagine giving all power to somebody who is not patient? He's not merciful. Could you imagine what that would be? And so God's power, his all omnipotence, is measured by his mercy. And that is refreshing. And therefore we get to do sometimes stupid things, but we're still alive because God loves us. He's patient with us. He knows we are capable of changing. He knows we are capable of good. And therefore, he is merciful. That's why we have the parables of the kingdom, right? The first parable, we are told that a man goes to sow wheat. And all of a sudden, weed is found among the plants. And his servant said, didn't we sow good seed? Why do we have weeds? Let them pull them out. Let us destroy them. The farmer said, no, don't do that. Let them grow together. Our natural state is wanting to what? Pull them off. Destroy them. And of course, I think that's what farmers do, right? But God said no. This farmer said no. He must be very stupid, right? Allowing the weed to grow with the weed. But that's a parable. And parables, from the Greek word, literally means to throw along. To throw, just like to cast a net along, right? And interestingly, this time, Jesus tells 3 parables all at a go. He is simply casting along, throwing along, hoping at least one of the parables will make sense to the crowd, isn't it? It takes 3 parables. One, perhaps they won't get it. Another, second one, they won't get it. The third one, Jesus is hoping at least the third one, somebody, it may click. But did you see that the disciples didn't get it? Those stupid disciples, they didn't get it. They had to follow Jesus to a house and say, tell us what this parable means. And Jesus lays it out clearly. And now this is the catch. Human beings, as we are, we have evil people, we have good people, even right in this church. Right? Except that we don't accept our reality. Sometimes we are good, sometimes we are bad. I have done that many times. But here's the truth. Jesus is saying that we should not be quick to judge. We should not be quick to condemn. Because unlike weeds that can never be wheat, can weeds ever be wheat? Impossible. They can never, no matter how they grow, they will never be wheat. But for us human beings, even as terrible as you may be to your wife and husband, you have the capability of changing. We all have the capability of being good, of being holy, of being awesome, of being loving, of being kind, of being merciful. And therefore, God gives us the opportunity, the patience, the time, and hoping someday, somehow, we can change to be holy, to be good, to be kind, to be merciful. So could you imagine if at every sinful act, God said, uproot you. You go. Who will be alive? Nobody. But God says, I created us. I created you in my own image and likeness. I know each human being has the ability and the capability of being good. Perhaps sometimes circumstances make us who we are. But I am patient with you. And therefore, allow the weed and the wheat to grow together. We are no weeds. Sometimes we are. But fundamentally, unlike weeds, we have the ability to change. And that is the good news. And therefore, to the disciples of Jesus, Jesus is telling them, if you are awesome, you are good, you are merciful, you are loving, be that. That is all we have. That is our responsibility, is to be good, to be loving. It's not our business to condemn, to judge, to uproot, and to destroy. It's not our business. God will take care of that at the end of the age, he says. Beautiful. So we get to live. And we get to sometimes do stupid stuff. And then we sometimes get and turn around and we become the most nicest, loving, caring individuals. All because God is good to us. So let us be good to one another. Let us be kind to one another. Let us be merciful to one another. Because God is merciful. And then he goes to say the second parable. And all of these pointing to one truth. The parable of the mustard seed. The smallest of all the seeds. And yet when it's put into the ground and it germinates, it becomes, we are told, a large bush. But interestingly, that's not the case. You know, it grows, but not like large trees that, you know. But the interesting stuff is that it branches, becomes whole to bears, to everyone. Why is that? If you pay attention to all the parables about the kingdom, all of them have the character of expansion. They are not limiting. They are not enclosed. The mustard seed grows big. The yeast expands the what? The dough. One of the things that when I never saw how bread was made. When I was in the novitiate, we used to make bread our own. And then we, when we put the yeast and then we put it in the, in the oven, and then we come around, and this bread expands. That was awesome to me. And we used to, every week, a particular group is in charge. And so we make this bread, and then we take one loaf, and then we go and hide somewhere, and we share among ourselves. That was what we used to do in the novitiate. And if the novice master catches us, we are in trouble. Because we get to taste it first. And so, all of the kingdom parables are expansive. They are open to tell us that God is for all of us. The kingdom, nobody should be prevented from experiencing it. But more importantly, our lives are supposed to be that extension of God's kingdom. So therefore, let us ask ourselves, how is my life an extension of God's kingdom here on earth? Therefore, let us live with joy and with conviction. Because our world today is tired and sick of sad Christians, sad Catholics. Because I have never been interested, I've never been attracted to a sad person. Who has? You wake up in the morning and all you see your husband or your wife is carrying a face. How can you be excited? It doesn't mean that we cannot be sad some days, but the joy that is at the foundation of the Christian life is a joy that no amount of anything in this world can take it away. That joy is inextinguishable. It is a joy that St. Paul said, neither life nor death, poverty nor riches, sickness nor health, nothing can take away that joy. That is the joy that the world is in need of. That is the joy that the world is attracted to, and it can only come from us Catholics. So let us set the world on fire with the joy that is within. And Christ, the infinite God, is the foundation of that joy. Because sadness, bitterness is never attractive. It is joy and love. And that is the world is in need of that joy. And let us offer it. Enough of the gospel. Who has a brochure? Oh, can I have? Let me now say something quickly about this. Cross Catholic Outreach. I'm sure you have the brochures, and I will plead that each family can have one, and see how you can help Cross. I became part of Cross Catholic Outreach a little over 3 years now, and basically this is what happened. One of my religious conference priests who had been doing this for Cross for over 20 years, and now is old and weak and can no longer travel, and his legs are wobbling. He said, Ray, Cross is looking for help from priests. Can you help? And I didn't know anything about Cross. And then I went to the website, read, and I said, wow, this is something good I can do. And then I wrote. They went through a lot of documents and all this. That drive me crazy. But anyway, I'm here. And I've been doing this. This summer, at the end of May, I've been everywhere. Every weekend, I've been everywhere. It's tiring sometimes, but it's joyful. You know, I get to meet different people. I get to experience different places. And for me, as a missionary, that's joy for me. That's awesome. And what does this? The work that Cross is doing is at the core of Jesus' mission. The church, again, the Second Vatican Council said, the work of justice, the preferential option for the poor and the needy, the sick, and all, is the constitutive dimension of the proclamation of the gospel of Christ. And if we pay attention, Jesus' own earthly ministry, the poor, the sick, was at the core of his ministry, right? So as a church, we can never close our eyes to the needs of our little brothers and sisters who are poor. And they do wonderful work. And this was started by lay people. The director, current director, Michelle, wonderful woman, who has passion for the work that they're doing in many, many countries. So I'll share two stories. The first, I grew up in Ghana when I was a child. So when I was going to school, elementary school, my school was just about 10 minutes away from home. So every break, you know what I do? I run home. And my mom would say, you don't come home. You know? And she would just get up and, hey, go back to school. And here, I said, I'm just coming to drink water. She said, no, go back to school. There's water in school. And here sometimes I sneak, make sure that she doesn't catch me. But anyway, that happened. But there were days I literally didn't want to go to school. What do I do? You know what I did? Who knows? Oh, no child here knows. Anyway, I tell you what I did. I pretended that I was sick. I wake up in the morning, I say my stomach, oh my goodness. And I pretend, wanting to vomit. And my mom will come and touch my head. Oh yeah, your head is warm. Yeah, probably you're sick. You just stay home. And I was happy. Very happy. Happy child that day. Then I walk slowly to bed. And as soon as my mom is she's gone out, I'm out of bed. Happy. Playing around. I didn't know the gospel text that says, stay alert, for you do not know the hour nor the day that the Son of Man will come. But I knew then that I needed to stay alert. I needed to watch out. So as I'm playing around, I'm watching everywhere, making sure she doesn't come and catch me. And as soon as I see her coming, I go back to bed, cover myself, and here, innocent mother, she comes around. Oh, my baby, you haven't gotten out of bed the whole day. And I say, yes. So, oh, what do you want me to do for you? Oh, and then I mention my best food. And here she goes to prepare it, and then I eat it. And then she comes, so you have to eat, you are sick, eat. I say, oh, you don't worry, I'm going to eat. I don't tell her that. But I say that within myself. I did that many times. But I knew, roughly, that in my school, there were kids who came from distance. This only occurred to me years later when I went to Bolivia as a missionary. And as we went to mission stations to celebrate Mass, I saw kids walking on foot for an hour, 2 hours, to go to the nearby school. Only then it dawned on me that if I were one of those kids, that I had to walk 1 hour, 2 hours, would I have gone to school? Who knows the answer? It would have taken a miracle for me. Perhaps I wouldn't have made it to school. Because I knew there were kids who drop out of school just simply because of the distance. Because they will come to school every day and they'll get caned. Because if you were late to school in my days in Ghana, you will be caned. Or you will be made to write, I will not come to school again late. I will not, and fill a whole book. That was a punishment. Crazy. Right? So I knew that if I needed to walk 1 hour, I would not have made it to school. So what saved me was that my school was 10 minutes away from school, from home. That was my salvation. And there I say, I thank God that I only needed 10 minutes to be in school. And when I go home during, some time in Ghana, and I see my classmates who didn't have the endurance to walk to school 1 hour, 2 hours, and drop out of school, and I see my life and I see their lives, it's like day and night. And once again, I say, thank God. But this time, I feel so sad in my heart because some of them were very intelligent. But simply because of distance and being afraid of being caned every day, they simply drop out of school. Sad. There are still kids in the world who still go through the same reality to be able to go to school. And that's basically the need that Cross Catholic Outreach is trying to break and to serve. And they do that irrespective of which country, from Guatemala to Honduras to Nicaragua to Nigeria to Kenya to Uganda, everywhere. You see that picture? Some people say it's me. It's not me. It's a priest in Uganda. I'm from Ghana, And if you can help, be generous, be kind. Because the church that we belong, even as we are called to live locally, our eyes are fixed to the universal church. And that's what makes the body of Christ powerful. Because we are all connected. And we are all the children of God. And so, one of the stories, if you go to their website, you read, they made their 2025 report. Wonderful. And you can get to see the number of things that they have done. One of the stories that particularly struck me was providing a borehole. They dig this borehole, mechanized well, and they mechanize it. And this whole town that has suffered years for water, eventually now have water. And you see the joy in the faces of the kids. You cannot but be happy. And Michelle, the director, was in Kenya last year. And it was simply fantastic. And it could be, I see here in the brochure, here, the list, $70. And when I saw what this can do, $70, it can provide 1,000 meals. It's almost like the miracle of Jesus, right? And when I saw that, because I travel a lot, sometimes I find myself in an airport sitting down and drinking coffee and eating burritos, waiting for my flight, and I end up spending more than $70. And when I saw that, I said, wow. And in some cases, this is the monthly salary of a family. So it doesn't take much to transform lives. A simple love and kindness can transform lives. And that is the amazing story. And the final story, before anybody falls asleep, has to do with my own missionary congregation. We took up a missionary work in Chad. Chad is in Central African Republic, Central. And it's a Muslim-dominated country. When two missionaries were sent there about 20 years ago, and when they got there, the bishop assigned them to a village. And in that village, there were only 2 Christians, a catechist and the wife. And then the 2 missionaries, one from the Philippines and then one from, the other one was from Poland. And they got there and they said, there are no Christians here. What are we going to do here? Build a church? No. And then they wrote to the superior. And the superior wrote back to them and said, well, you got to stay there. You got to figure out what you're going to do with your lives. You are not coming back. But get yourself a room, 2 rooms in the village and figure out what you're going to do. Listen to the Holy Spirit. And so they stayed in the village, and there were kids roaming around, running everywhere. There was no school. And so they decided to build a school. They started with an elementary school, and then a middle school, and now they have a secondary school. And as I speak to you, over 500 kids are going to that school. And the very first batch kids that went to that school, 3 of them, 3 young men, professed vows to become Divine Word missionaries just last year. And last year, in my congregation, we celebrated our 150th anniversary. And that was the climax of it. 3 from that first seed sown in that village professed vows to become Divine Word missionaries. Awesome. And then my classmate with whom I was ordained, who is also working in the same country, told me that last year in that village, they also celebrated the vigil mass for Easter. 250 new Christians in one single Easter vigil mass were baptized and confirmed. And I asked him, how long did the mass last? And he said, over 5 hours. 5 hours? I said, yes, 5 hours. I said, I cannot make it through that mass. And I'm not sure anybody can make it through that 5 hours mass. We will all pass out, right? But that is the joy. They brought light. And the people saw the light, because all we are called to do is to provide light, light, light. Because nobody will see light and opt for darkness. And that is the beauty of the gospel. And sometimes that light could be an act of kindness, an act of forgiveness. It could be $70, right? It could be 98. It could be 100. It could be saying that I will sponsor digging a well. It could be that. And if you're capable and if you want, be generous. And God will never forget that kindness and that love. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord be generous to you, and do not fall asleep. Let's continue our mass. Let us stand and profess our faith.